Hi, this is Calvin Cox. It's Monday morning, January 6th, the year 2014, and it is 5:35 a.m. What I want to talk about is something of a strategic information safety net that can still allow information to flow through all the networks and to the computers, and so information would continue to flow to people in the event of severe natural disaster, even if it were, on a large scale basis and and involved multiple states or even half the country. And I was thinking, well, basically this relates to Google and relates to any information company about keeping their systems alive and functioning and still operating in a natural disaster or whatever disaster, a massive war, who knows, anything. It all boils down to keeping their information system alive by being able to continue to have sufficient amount of electricity flowing through the system so it'll continue to work. If you can keep the electricity flowing through all of the information systems, the storage part of it, the transmission of the information to the individual computer, then it can still work. The only problem, of course, is the electricity availability to the end user having a computer in their own home. Okay? And if that user, like for me here in where I live, if I had a computer, I would need to be able to recharge the battery in order to receive the information and use it. So that actually itself is probably the weakest part of the whole link. And that could even be solved by local solar arrays, what would be on the top of a few houses for people to charge their cell phones and their computers. They could just walk over there and charge it and leave it somewhere in a secure situation where they sign it in and somebody responsible is there, and they could charge their cell phones or something of that nature. But how Google can keep itself alive during an economic meltdown and the necessity of keeping Google going. The necessity of keeping Google going, and any information system, this could apply to Bing or any of them, is people need information. People still need information especially during a natural disaster. People are always going to be caught off guard. That's never going to change, a million years into the future. People need information at different times because everybody's at a different level of preparedness. And so one guy, doesn't know anything about building a shelter, things fall apart. He needs to figure out how do you build a shelter, so he's going to need to be able to go on Google or Bing or some other information system, type in how do you build shelter, emergency shelter, quickly, and so he can get that information. How do you sanitize water? How do you, build a latrine? All the basic stuff, the safest way to cook, tons of information people are still going to need, and it's really important that they can access it. So keeping these information systems alive is really very important. Now, my understanding of Google is that like you have these big you see tractor trailers carrying these large metal corrugated boxes, the kinds that are shipped on the large ocean going vessels, containerized shipping. And they have these things. Google, my understanding is they have these like big container boxes around all the U.S. where all Google goes, And these container boxes are filled with servers, up in rows and rows and rows of them. And these servers, and it has a cooling device and everything, so, because computers put out a whole lot of heat. So you need to cool them down to keep them functioning properly. But these boxes are all around the whole country. Now, what I was thinking that would make a lot of sense, in an economic meltdown, in a natural disaster situation, it's very possible that coal-fired power plants could fail because people would not continue to send money in because economically everything would have collapsed. So people wouldn't send money in, so then the coal company, the electric company, could not then turn around and take the money it receives from its customers and turn around and purchase coal from the supplier where they're digging it out of the ground and shipping it via railway. So it's possible that electricity generation, that electricity loop could collapse. Which, and there's 600 coal-fired power plants around the country. I doubt they would all crash at once, but a few crashing here and there would put strain on the rest of the system and cause blackouts. Roving blackouts would probably become quite common. But when you need survival information, I'm pretty much thinking that you're going to need it right away, within a couple of hours at least, especially shelters. Okay, so let's see. So one way you can beef up the servers here is to have, wherever these boxes that contain all the servers, is to have a huge, maybe an acre, maybe 2 acres of solar panels set up. And these would be solar panels. And then of course you have the battery storage, and that'd be around the whole country. And then that would keep these servers running, this electricity to keep the servers running, and this electricity would help transmit it to the phone lines. And then of course you have your cell towers here, your dish on top, little transmission dish, whatever, little transmission energy wave going out there. So, and solar panels and batteries could keep cell towers alive and functioning, and and also communicating with satellites. So solar panels and battery systems could keep the servers going, could keep the cell towers going, and could also keep the phone lines here going, and could keep should be able to keep the fiber optic cable network buried in the ground that goes along with phone lines, or however they go along telephone poles, or they're buried in the line. There's a various assortment of how that's done. Solar panels again and batteries could keep all that system working. So the question would be to identify the weak points in the system. Where do you need the solar panel, a quarter acre, a tenth of an acre, and the batteries? Where do you need to place them within the whole system, and how many of them do you need to keep the whole system alive? Now, one thing I learned that years ago, if there was a storm and power was knocked out, you could still pick up your phone in a lot of places and it would still work. You could still dial. And you would think to yourself, well, if the power goes out and the lights go out, why does the telephone still come on? And one of the reasons is, if you've ever seen on a telephone pole, way up there, there's a box. And inside that box is a bunch of batteries. And they're about so big, and they're round, and they're silver colored. And they're a special kind of battery built just for telephone systems. And so that power coming from those batteries keeps the phone lines alive. Now, I don't know how much that, I think that still is the way that a lot of the phone system is kept alive. And so I'm assuming you can adapt that same concept to other weak parts in the system, or beef up the system even more, so that whatever the reason people might need to get on a computer and get information or do some kind of work, that there would be enough electricity running through the system that's still, so it would still function and people could still use it. Phone lines transport info, and fiber optic transmit info in cell towers. Wide area network, local area network transmit info. Basic need is you need a constant supply of electricity to keep it all going. So information can come from this cloud system or whatever you want to call it and get to you, the homeowner, and into your personal computer to use. Install huge solar arrays in strategic areas with battery backup. It's good for the people who make these batteries. It's good for the solar panel makers. It's good for everybody because you could still get on a computer and use it, find the information you need, and keep yourself connected. And it's a wonderful way to feel more secure. And in a natural disaster, the last thing you want is to not feel secure. It would be a very scary feeling. Thank you.